Hello everyone and welcome back. Before I get started, we're gonna do things a little bit differently today. For a while, God's just really been pressing on my heart the need to do this video. So today, if you've been curious, I'm gonna kind of get into a couple kind of like testimonial stories. I'm gonna talk about how I became a Christian, how I, as a Christian, decided to become a somatic sex educator, and I'm going to talk about my experience of getting asked to leave the church because of that. So if those are things that you're curious about or want to know, stay tuned and keep watching. Okay, but as always, going to start off with some prayer, and then I'll kind of get into this. It's just going to really be a free flow as usual. I don't have any materials because I can't really research myself. So here we go. Whew. Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. I thank you for better weather. I thank you for health. I thank you for just all the good things in my life and the deep peace that I've been feeling despite many of the chaoses in my life. Lord, I just pray that you'd be with me during this time, and as I share my story, I just pray that for whoever hears this, that they receive it with an open mind and an open heart, and show kindness in response to whatever it is that I have to say. And as always, Lord, I just thank you for opportunities to share how you move. Guide this as you guide everything. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, here we go. So I'll start off, I guess, with, how I became a Christian, and it kind of all starts from the beginning. So Christians like to call this like their testimony. So for me, it really all started, I guess, when I was a kid. I was born into a Lutheran home, so I was baptized Lutheran, but my dad actually is his family, a good chunk, are Jehovah's Witnesses. And then when my mom was remarried, we converted to Catholicism. So around 3, I started going to Catholic church and going to like CC and like all things Catholic, and going through the processes and all of the sacraments of Catholicism. So like confession, received the Eucharist for the first time, and I was confirmed in high school. Relevant to my story, childhood was tough. My biological dad and I didn't have like much of a relationship. I only got to see him like a couple times a year, and just felt really honestly kind of abandoned by him, and that he just wasn't someone I could really lean on. So most of my time I was with my mom and my stepfather, and my stepdad and I didn't really have a great relationship either. And this is relevant, I promise. From like my knowledge and education now, I kind of, I guess, grew up in somewhat of like a emotionally and psychologically like kind of neglectful and abusive household. Very much felt like love was conditional and my worth was based off of what I could do and what I contributed, not who I was as a person. And I felt very othered in my family. Add a layer to that, I also was the only person of color in my family. So my mom, my stepfather, and my brother are all white, and the town that I grew up in was all white. And so never experienced necessarily like explicit racism, but definitely just little things that, like, looking back, I question all the time, like, was that due to what I look like? Like, I was put into like beginner or almost kind of like lower level classes and had to kind of like prove that I was smart enough to be in the upper levels, which eventually I did, and I was in like honors everything and graduated honors. and second in my class. And like dating and things were interesting just because I didn't have a lot of interest, it felt like, and part of that was kind of because I felt like I was a different race, or I felt very kind of like fetishized. I had like, you know, like guy friends asked me to like take their black girl virginity because there was something like taboo and supposedly, you know, something different about having sex with someone who is black. So yeah, it was just a very interesting upbringing. So that's kind of a backstory, which kind of goes into a lot of the other things that kind of happened in my life. So so like not like, I guess like the most horrible, you know, childhood. I danced a lot, I did track, had friends, but just struggled a lot with self-worth. I had periods of self-harm, a few periods in my life of like suicidal ideation, and just really felt like a mantra I had was kind of like, if the people, especially if the men in my life who were supposed to love me didn't, why would any man choose to? And so when I left home to go to college, which I was very excited about, I kind of stepped away from faith for the most part. Before that, I mean, my family and I, we went to church on Sundays, but kind of our faith life kind of stopped there. When I was younger, we used to eat together and like pray before every meal, and my mom would tuck us into bed and we would pray, but somewhere along the way that stopped. I couldn't tell you what age it did, but we stopped eating together. We definitely didn't, I didn't get tucked in anymore. We all kind of lived separate lives and were doing our own thing. So I had some like, you know, really personal moments with God growing up. I remember like times of after CCD and like learning stuff about God and Jesus, you know, just like crying and praying in my parents' car, waiting for people to come out or something about life. But just had a lot of questions, a lot of things I didn't agree with. And kind of a lot of times my questions were met with like, you're just like too much. That's just too much. I don't know, just something with the way in which Catholicism was just like didn't resonate with me. So when I went to college, I tried for a bit to like keep going to church, but then I just was like, yeah, this just doesn't feel right to me. And so I stopped going. Even when I went home, I would tell my mom I wasn't going, which she was very upset by for a bit. But then she kind of got over it, I guess, and it was just like, you know, you're an adult, you kind of make your own choices. Anyways, so I, as Christians would say, lived a worldly life. Was in the party scene, drank way too much. And then, which was not fun. Me in my early drinking days, all of the self-hatred and worthlessness when I was too intoxicated would all just boil up, and I'm so thankful for my friends who still stuck by me despite me having like total mental breakdowns in the middle of the night and like running, literally like sprinting away. And just all this darkness just kept coming up and nothing seemed to really fill the void. So I did what I usually do, is I would hyper busy myself and just get involved with a lot of different things and try to distract myself from just how lonely and empty I felt all of the time and sad. Then amidst all of this, really fun times, my last weekend, my freshman year, the weekend before finals, was assaulted for the first time, and that's actually how like I lost my virginity. And it took me a long time to actually like acknowledge it as assault, because it was very like coercive. I didn't kind of recognize it as that until years later. And then about a month later was assaulted again, back at home, by someone that I knew. And that kind of led into, which lots of people don't know, kind of with assault survivors. And I think this is one of the reasons why like I never considered myself assaulted for a long time, is because I had this really poor education on like what like a survivor looked like. I thought that if you had that experience, you know, like you were, I guess, like hyposexual, so you like, you know, avoided men and you avoided anything around sex and touch, and like all of those things were just like totally adversive and you had no interest at all. And I became the complete opposite. I became even more hypersexual, and then honestly kind of was doing the thing where my brain kept trying to take control of these other situations that were similar-ish to the originals, and trying to kind of like redo and take back like my sexual power in this kind of self-destructive way. But it all came back around. And so I kind of, I guess as some people would say, I had like a hoe face. Let's just call it that. I had kind of a hoe face. But it just kind of kept feeding though that like already like empty, dark hole that I felt inside myself. And then ironically, right before I was supposed to go to Panama City for spring break, which, you know, several years ago, I don't think you can anymore. Like, you used to be able to like drink on the beach, and like that was like the place to go for spring break. Like it was the crazy party college place. And my friends and I were set to go, and I was, you know, prepared to keep rolling out my hoe phase, and, you know, just was ready to go buck wild there. But the weekend before, I ended up with this like one guy, but he was like different in some ways, and then like not in others. I'm sure looking back, it on some level was totally a rebound on his side, but he was just sweet and caring and attentive, and like stayed and held me, and just those little moments of intimacy that like a part of me kind of forgot what I wanted, and it kind of shook something in me where I was like, I haven't really been living in alignment with what I really want. Like I really want relationship and like other forms of intimacy outside of just like having sex with somebody. And so when I went to Panama City, that really stuck with me, and so I just didn't have any interest in doing anything. But you're probably like, where is this going, Michaela, and how does this connect to you being a Christian or becoming a somatic sex educator? It does, I promise. But anyways, while on spring break, there was this moment that it was like after one of our nights of partying or whatever, and we're on the beach, and there's just like this really weird phenomenon where somehow, I swear, for like in each direction, like a football field's length, everybody was just like asleep except for me. Like it was just like a whole, like I swear, like each direction I looked for just like a mile, there was like not another soul awake or moving, at least, that I could see. And at the time, there used to be this thing called Beach Reach, and it was when college students, Christian college students, would go to some of like the most popular like spring break, fall break, whatever break places where college kids were just like going buck wild, and they would, you know, try to preach the gospel. Kind of like how Mormons do to like your house, but like on the beach while you're drinking. We, you know, thought it was super annoying. So, like I was just like, that is so freaking lame. But like I said, I was the only person awake, and I had just like no desire to sleep, and so I was really, really bored. And so these two Christian kids whose names I don't remember, and it's so funny how things work, and they may or may not ever remember me. I'm sure they talked to like many kids that weekend, but walked over to me, and I was like, well, I literally have no one else to talk to. Like, I might as well just see what these people have to say. You know, I was like, I mean, I believe in God and Jesus and all that stuff, but like, it wasn't personal. So I remember they came over and they said some stuff, and I remember they put some pictures of stuff in the sand. I don't remember much, but I do remember like having this moment, like whatever they said like resonated with something, and I remember looking up and down the beach and looking at myself, because they said something about emptiness and something about how like all of this is us seeking God. It was us seeking to fill like a hole that like only he could fill. And there's a part of me that like recognized like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Like this is all so empty. Like the drinking is empty, the boys are empty, any drugs I did, most weed, I'm not a big drug person, empty. Like none of it satisfies anything, and if it does, it's so finite, and it just goes back to being empty again, if not emptier, each time I indulged in any of it. And just this like wave of sadness kind of waved over me, but I was like, I don't really know what to do with this. I didn't give my life to Christ that day. It was just a seed. Anyways, so that kind of stuck with me, and honestly, I kept living the same lifestyle, but it just, I've definitely felt this awareness of more so of why I was doing it, and that like I was doing all of this stuff to try to feed the emptiness. And so I couldn't tell you what year that was. It's probably like, I think that was either sophomore. I think that was sophomore year. It was before I was 21. I know I wasn't of legal drinking age when we did that. But fast forward, that was like a seed that was planted, and then I don't know, just the emptiness like kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And then I don't remember like what it was, but there was just this like one random day that I kind of was like, I literally just like made a joke to myself. I don't think I made it out loud, but like when I just was like kind of in this, like, as my friends and I say, this like pit of despair. And I just kind of joked, and I was like, you know what, maybe I like need Jesus. Like I've tried like everything else. Like maybe this whole Jesus thing is something I should try. And I like laughed it off, being like, I can't believe I actually said that out loud. But it kind of stuck with me. It did. And I don't know why, but then even longer, months after that. So this was not a quick process at all for me. That emptiness just like kept growing and growing and growing. And there was this point, I think it must have been like my senior year, because everyone else had like left. A lot of people, my friends transferred, and my best friend like stopped doing, she graduated a semester early, and I could have as well, but I just didn't want to go home for all of the stuff I said before. And so I was there and still like sitting there with this like darkness, and I was kind of at the place of like, either I try this whole Jesus thing and see if it does anything, or I don't want to be here anymore. This like, I can't deal with this darkness anymore. I can't do it. And then weirdly, I started getting like emails about like Bible groups on campus, and I'd been there for 4 years, and I'd never seen a single thing on campus about there being anything Christian on campus, or I just like totally missed it. My eyes were blind to everything related to God on campus. And so I was like, well, none of my friends are here to see me do this weird ass thing, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try this whole Bible study thing and just see what it's about, and like how is it different from what I grew up with, because what I grew up with was a lot of judgment and condemnation, and just that you had to work so hard to earn God's love and his favor and salvation, and it was impossible, and I was never going to be good enough. I got enough of that at home. I just couldn't do it for some big spiritual being up in the sky of failing for him too. So no thanks. So I went to some Bible study on campus. And that was when I finally heard the gospel for like the first time. It was the first time I heard about God being like a loving and gracious God, and that there was literally nothing more I needed to do than just to like accept him and accept Jesus in my life to be saved. Like it was that simple. I didn't have to like go and change all of these things and then like come back. It was like, no, God accepted me exactly as I was knew everything about me, probably more than I know about myself, like every intricate part of my being, every bad thing I ever did, every bad thing I was going to do, and still wanted me. And that Jesus knew all of that too. This is always the hard part. And there was like, I think they even said, they were like, if you were like the only person on this planet, it was just you, Jesus would still do everything that he did. And I like couldn't, I don't know, that amount of love and acceptance, I just like couldn't ignore anymore. And that was something that I wanted. That's all I ever wanted, you know, all of the things. I just wanted to be loved and to be accepted, and all I had to do was just receive it. It was that simple. It's crazy. And so I think it's like that day or within that week, I didn't even do like publicly. I just like personally like decided like this is real for me. I want this. I want that relationship. I want to know God, this being that that chooses me, that keeps pursuing me. And then like looking back at like all the stuff that I said before, of like all these like little seeds of showing me that he was pursuing me in all of these quote unquote dark places, it just, I don't know, it just kind of came all for full circle, and been on my journey ever since, which has not been perfect at all. Yeah, it's been a journey. If anyone ever tells you that everything just becomes great in your life once you become a Christian, they are full of shit. Absolutely. Because there is no, it's not a lie that like once you kind of give your life to Christ, like you change, and some of it is weirdly from your own desires, or like lack of desires that you had before. So I mean like within that week, like I lost like all desire to like drink and go out. There's other desires that were like didn't break so much later, some stuff I still struggle with now, but there just was this consistency of like this desire to like want to know God and to know him better. For a long time though, I really couldn't call God Father. It took me actually like over a year to be able to call God Father, just because of the just of the context around that word and like how I viewed my own dads. Yeah, like I hated that word, honestly. Anyways, how that all ties together into, okay, so then, you know, I find Christ, there's, you know, all of these new rules and regulations and stuff, which, you know, right now I'm currently going through the deconstruction, which is why I am kind of doing this channel. So yeah, I don't know, but that instance really started my healing journey. And so then I ended up prayerfully deciding to go to like North Carolina for grad school, which was never on my plans. I wanted to go to California, but like weirdly, as I call them, like Jesus winks, like met my roommates, like when we went down to like check out the campus for our program, and both of them happened to be like believers. One was Catholic, one was evangelical, and I was just kind of the one in the middle who's like, I'm just figuring this out. And then this part of the story, so getting into more of like, okay, well, how did I become a somatic sex educator? Little backtrack. Pretty much all of my life I've been interested in sex and relationships. That's always been a thing. My mom was always very open. I really am thankful that I received a great sex education at home and at school. But yeah, because I think myself, I struggled with relationships because of my own feeling of worthlessness for the longest time. I just wasn't good at them, and so I wanted to figure them out. Anyways, so in grad school with these two believer roommates, and then had like an evening with them, and somehow it like came up about like the instances that had happened in college, and both of them for the first time were like, those kind of don't sound the greatest. Sounds like those were sexual assaults. And so that like was something that I had to start processing. And then I ended up getting mono. And so if you ever have had mono, like totally kicks your butt. And so all of my coping mechanisms, I didn't have working out. I couldn't busy myself. I couldn't distract myself any longer from the dark hole. The dark hole had definitely been kind of like warmed a little bit from finding God and this relationship and through prayer and things, but I still had a lot of healing to do. And so I kind of had like a mental breakdown where like everything just came up, and I finally felt the courage, I guess, to go to therapy, which is a really validating and great experience. So I highly recommend if anyone is out there struggling similar to me. I mean, like, what does it hurt? You go for a few sessions and, sorry, my brother's using the blender. You go for a few sessions and it doesn't do anything, at least you know. But for me, it was the first guy I had, his name was like Alexander. He was like a student, because the free sessions were hours for like the psych students on campus. But so he only got 10 sessions, but I absolutely loved him. Yeah, his name, I believe, is Alexander. And he was just like super validating to my experience, like my experiences like growing up, to my assaults, which is something I really needed, because for the longest time, like I was told that like my experiences were like I was remembering things wrong, and I perceived things wrong, and my feelings were wrong. Everything about me was wrong. So I really just did not trust my intuition. I didn't trust my body. I didn't trust my mind. So it was just like the first time someone was like, yeah, like in my like professional opinion, like these were traumatic events. And it makes sense that like you feel the way that you do. And so yeah, so I did therapy for a while, and then through that like became a speech therapist, which I didn't really want to do. That's like a whole other side story as to how this all came about. But anyways, so did therapy, became a speech therapist, and did that for about a year. And I was like, honestly, like not even done with my clinical fellowship, which is like the first year after you get out of school. You have to kind of do like almost like a residency, like a doctor, where you have a supervisor, but you're like independent at the same time. And I think I was like 7 or 8 months in, and something from college kept coming up. It was this, because in undergrad I got a minor in psychology, and I took this class in, my cat is gonna knock over my camera, stop it, a class in human sexuality. And that's when I first learned that like you could become something like a sex therapist, and I almost changed my major that day, but then I just didn't have the confidence to do so, and I thought it would be just like too disruptive, and my parents I'd get so much stuff from them, and I just like didn't feel like having that argument, and thought it'd be too complicated. And I was like, yeah, I like speech enough, it's fine. So did that, and did the whole thing, and my roommates and I even had conversations about stuff that we had considered doing, and like, are we doing the right thing? But we already here, so you might as well just keep going. I already spent all this money. But there just was something that just wasn't sitting right with me. And I was like, I know it's been like only 7 months, like I should really give this more of a shot, but like, I don't know, it just, there's just something like about this, like I'm good at it, and all that, and it makes money, and it's reliable, but like there's just something about this like just doesn't feed my soul. And so I was looking at going back to school for psych, and then like trying to pursue and like become like a sex therapist. And around that time was then when the show Sex, Love, and Goop came out. And that's when I first learned about like this whole like somatic side of like being a somatic sexologist or somatic sex coach, and watching those practitioners work with those couples and seeing just how much more you could get out of working with the body. And then at the same time, this, I think I said in one of my other videos forever ago, I had, you know, been going to therapy for a long time, and I myself kind of just like felt like I was like really talked out, and like I needed to like actually embody and like do and like work on these skills actively that I wasn't good at in relationships and building intimacy. I literally like was like, I need like a fake boyfriend to practice on, like just like communication, setting boundaries, and like relaxing and not like being like so tense all the time. And so to learn like that was like something that actually existed, I was like, I need that for me, but then also I want to do that. And so then that is like kind of what started my journey in, I think that was 2021, that I signed up for my first course at the institute I was at previously, and I did that on and off for the last several years, which has been such a cool experience, especially like the intensives. Definitely done some things that I didn't know existed and I would not have thought would do, but that's for another time. Anyways, just for time's sake. But when I did make that decision, one thing I will say is I questioned a lot with my faith. Like I literally had the thought, I was like, can a Christian do a career around sex and intimacy? Like, it's so taboo in the church, and there's so many thoughts about it in the church, and like, is this an option? I prayed about it for quite a while, and then I kept getting this whisper of, I need my people in this space. Like, that's kind of like what I kept getting in my mind. It was just this feeling of like, my people aren't here. Like, my people aren't talking about this. My people, like, basically saying like Christians aren't in this realm of sexuality or anything. Like, I need God, not me, but God saying like, I need my people being a part of this like healing that like needs to happen, because there's just so much sexual brokenness in the world. And so, like I said, I did it, and my big thing was, I was like, if I get this scholarship for this program, like I'm gonna take that as a yes, but if I don't get it, then like I'm not doing it. And I got accepted in like 24 hours, and I was like, okay, this is happening. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit because I'm literally just free thinking this and trying to think of the last like 30 years of my life altogether. It's just like, anyways, so yeah, so I did that, and such a cool journey. Lots to say, good experiences, bad experiences, one bad enough experience that I've like now changed schools, but that is also a whole other story. But how that all ties into then the thing that probably many people are interested about, how then from doing this work was I asked to leave the church. Not a fun time. And I think the reason I wanted to do this video is because it's coming up on about a year in which that happened, and I'm actually currently right now looking for a new church, just because I learned some other stuff about the church I was going to that just didn't feel in alignment, and so I'm really trying to seek a community in that space. Anyways, so yeah, let's see. Last year, I had been back here in Wilmington, North Carolina for about a year, and the church I was going to while I was gone had actually split, and one of the pastors had left and had started his own church. So some people will be able to put this together, but I'm not going to use names or anything, because I'm not trying to slander him or the church. Even though there's part of my flesh who wants to be honest. I just like want to put them on blast, but I know that's not the right thing to do. Anyways, and the pastor that left was actually the pastor of color. My church had like a lead pastor that was white and a lead pastor that was black, which I really appreciate, and that's one of the big reasons why I chose that church in the first place. So anyways, I was really wanting more diversity in my life, just because speech therapy and like my whole life, pretty much, I'm like a token Black person in everything. And so I wanted more people of color in my experience. And so this was some place I was going to try. So I started going to that church and was really enjoying it and thinking like this was going to be my new church home. And yeah, I like kind of officially like left my other church. I like put my notice in for like my volunteer work. And I was gonna start trying to be a part of like the community. And so I had talked to the lead worship pastor about helping with praise and worship, because I had done praise and worship before, and even though it's not my favorite thing to do in church, I just kind of like singing randomly for fun. I just was like, oh, it's, you know, it's a talent that I have. It's different from anything else, because otherwise people ask me to do like kids ministry, and I'm with kids all week long, so that's a no for me. So I was like, this is something I could do. This part is my assumption, just a little bit. I had said, I think while I was at that church, I had said something about being a somatic intimacy or somatic sex educator or coach. And my assumption is because I asked about a role that is forward-facing in the church, that put me under a microscope. Because that's just kind of how the church is. If you're in something in leadership, then they kind of have to like vet you to see like, can you uphold, you know, like whatever standard is set for that. So I asked about that on Sunday, and then I believe it was that Tuesday that a member of the church, a woman that I met like very briefly, reached out and said that she wanted to meet with me to talk about joining the praise and worship team. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. It was going to be a Zoom meeting, so we set it for like the next day, and it was like right after I was done with work, so I was going to do the meeting at work. So the message literally said that, of like, can we get together or have a discussion of you, about you joining the praise and worship team. Okay, so that's what I think is happening. It was a Zoom meeting, like I said. So I remember I got off work and I was hungry, and I made mac and cheese because I had leftover mac and cheese from someplace I'd gone the night before. I get on the Zoom meeting. I'm expecting, you know, to talk about, you know, like, can I sing? Can I read music? What's my schedule like? Talking about like time commitments, you know, regular stuff. And I get on the meeting and we clarify that we can hear each other. And the very first words out of her mouth are, "We're concerned for your soul." What? Like, what? What are we talking about? And basically she said that, so they researched me, like looked at my website, and my like Instagram, looked at my school's website, and that per what they observed, that like there's no way that any of this work could ever be in alignment with like biblical principles. And I was like, I really should have been like, yeah, you like totally ambushed me. I'm gonna need to reschedule this and like mentally and emotionally prepare for this conversation. But I didn't. I pushed through, which was like an old pattern that I'm trying to break. And so like I asked, I was like, what do you mean by that? And so one of their things is they were saying like my school is involved with illegal activity. So what they meant by that is that the school that I was going to does what's called sexological body work, which is hands-on genitals work or hands-on any part of the body work, and can involve like erotic touch and things. It is very different from sex work. Orgasm is like not the goal, which is what I would say is the main difference. It is definitely meant to be therapeutic, work on things such as like pain, numbness, some identity of pleasure. You know, it's much bigger than that. Just take my word for it. But anyways, think what you want. But on some states and things, it is considered sex work because it is hands-on genital work and you're getting paid. other states. There's laws and things around it because it's considered educational. So it's a huge debate. This is a very up and coming field, y'all. So lots to think about. Anyways, but I said, I don't do sexological body work. I've decided not to do it. And I, talked about that I literally right now, like, I've been going through school and I'm in the process of discerning based on what I've learned, like, what do I feel like is in alignment with my faith and what things do I feel like are not. I'm very open to having like conversations about that. But I don't feel like, basically I'm like, I don't feel like you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater type of thing. She then goes to proceed into the fact that I had an interest in working with married couples, and how that was like threatening to married couples because I'm single. Like she said, it would maybe be a little different if I was married, which is great. Another jab at single people. And that basically like I would be a distraction or a temptress to the husband. In which I was like very confused, and I was like, well, what about like marriage counselors? There's many of them that are not married, or the same thing with like me as a speech therapist, like this going to like, what do I as a single person have to say into marriages? But like I speak to parents every single day about how to raise their kids and like how to work with their kids. I don't have children, but I just have years of experience and knowledge of working with children and on, research about how to do things to help with their speech and development. Same type of thing. I've just done lots of schoolwork, and other people have done lots of research on techniques and strategies for couples to help foster closer intimacy and better communication, and ideally to increase like the pleasure between the two of them and make their marriages better. That's what I would like. But she just was like that there's just like no reason a single woman should be speaking into a marriage, and that was inappropriate. And that she would never see a single like marriage counselor, and I was like, that's like your prerogative, basically. Gosh, what else was like the issue? I think those were like the main ones. Those were the main things, was like the sexological body work and it being considered illegal in some places, and the fact that I was interested in working with couples. And so I basically said, I was like, okay, so like if I agree to not do sexological body work and only work with single women, like then like can't like is that acceptable or whatever? And she still basically was like, no. Like, we just think that we prayed about this and just do not think that this is at all biblical. And that the church was too new to walk with me through this discernment process or through whatever healing I needed to do that was like causing me to like stumble into this career. Then she said, yeah, so we have decided and we ask that you don't come back to church. And so I said, so you're kicking me out of church? And she said, no, that's not how we look at it. And I was like, I don't know, how else do I look at it? Like, I was like, it's one thing to not be able to be like in the prison worship team. It's a whole other thing for you to say, you're saying I can't even come back to services. How is that not getting kicked out of church? Like, I don't even. And then she said some other things, and then I was like, I don't know, and I tried to be like, I guess argue and be like, I just like don't understand like how this is the right way to go about things. And she said basically like, have a good life, and then she hung up the call. She also promised that she was going to send me some stuff for some healing kind of camps, or like churches in the area who had like healing ministries around like sex, that she thought I should go to. She never sent those. I would have been really interested to know about that, actually. And I would have like checked them out and seen like, I don't know, is there a resource in the area I could use? just for like other people or something. But yeah, so then yeah, just hung up the call. So I'm just sitting in my office crying because I just got told that I am no longer welcome back at services. It was absolutely heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. Called a couple people. Some of them, ironically, were like from the church, and I was like, were you like a part of this decision? Talked to like some family. I mean, I was absolutely devastated. I'd never heard of someone being asked to leave the church for like anything, unless it was like something that like someone was causing like actual harm, like actual harm, you know, like either like stealing money from people, you know, assaults, you know, stuff that like everyone would kind of agree, like we maybe don't need in close quarters, like if someone is, you know, like being oppressive and like all that stuff. Like I literally had never heard of someone being asked to leave. And I never thought that that was like an option because of like the work that I've decided to do. I was just absolutely devastated. My cousin did have some good insight, and she was like, also I should say the person who was on this call, and there's one other person there as a witness, was not the pastor of this. And so my cousin, like I said, was smart, and she was like, why don't you like email the pastor and like confirm, like, because you know then you get in your head and I'm like, did I hear them correctly? Did she say like, we think it'd be best you don't come back, we ask that you don't come back? Like the wording, like all of it was just like, you know, I'm like second guessing everything in my head of just being like an absolute shock. Like, did this just like, I'm sorry for like, did this just fucking happen? Like, what? I don't even know. And so I emailed the pastor and was like, hey, like I had this meeting, I felt very ambushed. This is like what I took from that meeting. Like, did I interpret this incorrectly? Like, what is, like, she made it sound like you were a part of this decision. Like, are you aware of this decision? What is happening? And he upheld pretty much everything she said and said, you know, like maybe we should consider like how we went about this, but like the decision stands. Which I'm going to actually, like, I'm gonna be honest, AI is gonna make a blog about this whole video, and I'm going to include the emails between the two of us. I still have them. I'm not gonna edit anything except for I'm gonna redact all the names, so you can see my question, his response, and then my response to what he had to say. So if you want to like see all of that and read that for yourself, as to it goes into more details as to why they prayerfully decided to go this route. But this was traumatizing. And this is something I said in my email, like that they should be really, really thankful that I already have such a strong relationship with God, and I have my own personal relationship, and that this does not at all deter me from still seeking Him. Because if I was a new believer or someone just curious about the church, like, I'd be gone. I would view God through the lens of these people, and I'd probably never want to come back. This is such a traumatic experience. Like, this was spiritually traumatizing. You know, it's like almost a whole year later, and I now, like, my body stiffens when I learn like someone else is a Christian, whereas it used to like soften and get excited. Now it stiffens. I don't feel safe in churches. I feel very hesitant and like prepared to be rejected. And I know there's lots of other groups of people who feel the same way, and who now, like, you know, won't even step into a church because of experiences like these. And Oh, do I empathize with you? Absolutely horrible. Absolutely freaking horrible. Yeah. And so I question now. I never question, like I said, if I'm a believer anymore, but I question, how do I exist in the system that currently exists? And I don't know that I can. So, yeah. That's where I'm at now. So that is that story of how that all went down. Yeah, so that in a nutshell, in like an hour, is basically kind of ish my life story. Many other minor stories in there, and I'm sure I missed a lot, but that's the overarching thing. Born into Christianity, had some hard times as a child, always interested in sex, had some breakdowns, went to a really dark place. Basically, it was like God or nothing else. God was the better choice. Still had a lot of darkness and healing to work through. Found this amazing field, which has been so detrimental to my healing. I would not be where I am today, of loving myself and my body and like my voice and my confidence, if I had not done this work. And I know God is in things when I can see the fruit of it. And I would say that there's a lot of good fruit in what I've done so far. And now just continuing on this journey and seeing how things land. So, yeah, that is my story. Sorry it was all over the place, but that's kind of how life is. And if you made it this far, thank you for listening. And for everyone out there who's supported me through all of this, I really appreciate it. The love, the prayers, the things that are explicit and implicit. That is life. Open to any questions or comments about my story. So if anyone does comment on any of this stuff, I'm open to like answering anything. But if anyone wants to share their own stories of their own testimonies, of their own like therapeutic healing journey, or if other people want to share their church hurt stories, which sadly we can share together. But overall, just thank you for listening. As I said before, please hold my story with openness and love and compassion. I would really appreciate that. Just gonna pray out and then that'll be it. Heavenly Father, bro, I don't know. I don't know why you make me do these things. But it is amazing to look back at my own story and just to see you in so many moments of my life, a lot of stuff I didn't mention here, but just to think back and just to see you working in even some of the darkest times of my life. And like I said, still pursuing me, still getting me through things, and still being with me today. I still feel your presence, and I still feel your love, and I still feel your acceptance. And I just thank you, Lord, for that. I pray, Lord, just, I don't know, use this. I don't know why you want me to do this, but use it for whatever your will is. And I just look forward to, I don't know, the next crazy thing you have me do. Just thank you, God, for all that you are. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, everyone. Till next time. Bye.